Now, the Genius session with Jane Gunn is about bringing the world together in the way that she does it. And I want to share, you can see a picture there of this, one of her books that she's written. She's written several, The Mole and the Mountain. Here we go. I've got it here. I was at the book launch. Thank you for inviting me, Jane. It was absolutely special. And one of the coincidences that happened today is today we're talking about human being first in the how do you collaborate more effectively. And the back of the acknowledgements here, she has a quote from Desmond Tutu. In our fragile and crowded world, we can survive only together. We can be truly free, ultimately, only together. We can be human only together. And that's the essence of what we're about. So I'm going to hand over now to Jane. I'm really grateful that she is helping us today because we did lose our original speaker who will turn up sometime in the future. We'll sort him out another day, but circumstances beyond his control. So I just want to say thank you so much to Jane. A round of applause. Over to you, my love.
Thank you, Jill. So I'll show my slides, of which I've got some somewhere. Here we go. Hope you can all see that. Okay, so yeah, here's Morris, by the way. He's come. I have an actual Morris, and it's just about to be his first birthday. So The Mole in the Mountain was launched. And it's turning into, which I'm going to go through with you, a whole process that I'm going to share with you that can help us in these times. So I just want to start with a question, which is, how was your journey today here? And of course, everybody's saying, oh, we didn't go anywhere. We sat at home. But I mean, how was your journey to this point? Here's a picture of me looking very young when I started work. My first day at work, as we were just talking before we went on about my early legal career. And I was working for a high street law firm. And the first job I was asked to do was some filing. Here you are, do some filing, Jane, and give a great pile of documents to file in a filing cabinet. Well, I'd never seen a filing cabinet before. So I started working through this pile. They weren't in alphabetical order. So before I knew where I was, I'd pulled all the drawers out at once. And hey presto, the filing cabinet fell on top of me. How embarrassing on my first day at work. But sometimes we are sort of overwhelmed by circumstances, overwhelmed by our work. And I feel we live in a world at the moment where we are completely overwhelmed and we feel that we live in quite dark and difficult times. How do we then craft our own journey to success and joy despite all that? So I'm going to take you through this process today using Morris the Mole and the principles that come out of the journey that he's been on. So when we don't know what to do, what is it we're looking for? I mean, we keep looking for new leaders. Do we find them? Have we found someone who's going to lead us in the world? Have we found someone who's going to take control and help us? Or is there something else? And one of the key principles that comes out of my work in mediation and out of the book, The Mole and the Mountain, is self-determination. It's up to us. It's up to all of us individually. And I know that fits very well with the principles and values of collaboration global. So just a bit about me. As I say, I was trained as a lawyer. I don't work as a lawyer now. I work as a mediator. So I help to facilitate dialogue, conversations for people in challenging times, what I say times of change, challenge and crisis. What's new? Often they're in very difficult disputes in their workplace, in legal disputes, but it can be any element of conflict, external conflict. And always with external conflict, there comes a sense of internal conflict too. So we're always dealing with the combination of external conflict and internal conflict. And how was your journey to this point? So in the book, The Mole and the Mountain is a map, and that is the map that I use with all my clients now. Even if I don't introduce them to it, it's the map that's in my mind. It came to me when I was on a holiday in Portugal, struggling with my own journey and thinking, where do I go from here? And I drew out what I thought was the map that I take my clients through when we're working through a particular challenge. So you might like to just sort of have a look at this map, and I'd like you to think about 3 different situations. Where do you see yourself as an individual? Where do you see perhaps a group or an organization that you're part of in these times that we live in? And where are we as a society? And I will break this down and explain the map a little bit more to you, but just on an initial look, where do you see yourself? Where do you see your group or your family or your organization? And where are we as a society? And there are probably some things that jump out of you there at you there. I don't know if I will see the chat box. I can look at it up there. So do write any comments in the chat if you have any as to what you see. I don't see anything currently, but I'll carry on. So just to take you then through the process. So the map is the journey. Let's just return to that so I can just talk you through a number of the elements there. It starts with the crisis down in the left-hand side there. So there's a storm. Sometimes we're not aware of the storm. Sometimes there's a storm brewing and we're ignoring it. Very often we got the wrong shoes on. That could be the wrong mindset, the wrong people in our teams, the wrong process. All sorts of things are represented by these icons on the map. One of the key elements there, which is rather small, is the fallen oak. And that really has come to me from the last 5 years that we've gone through. There is no going back. We never can go back to life as it was before. We can only move forward, and we can only take this journey through the landscape. Where most of my clients get stuck, and I'm sure many of us feel we are right now, is in the murky swamp of reality. It's a place where if you've ever fallen into a swamp or a bog, I haven't, but my daughter did once when she was young, and it was quite challenging getting her out of that murky, muddy swamp. But when you're in a murky, muddy swamp, everything is a bit, as you thrash around, it gets muddier and murkier. And what we're trying to find in life and when we're dealing with challenges is clarity. How do we get clear? How do we work out where we should be going? How do we understand what's going on in the world? How do we find that truth and that stability? And then we have to make choices. I call that, and in the book, the bridge of courage. We have to take the step over the bridge. Otherwise, we may end up on the other side of the map in the nowhere abyss. We're going nowhere, we're stuck, and maybe somebody else is in control of our destination. And finally, we make our way to and towards the mountaintop of experience. That's a place where we can see the world with greater perspective, with greater clarity. But it's often very lonely at the top of the mountain. Not everybody wants to climb up with you to the top. You may be able to see things up there, but it comes at a cost. So sometimes we have to make that journey with a few chosen companions because we've left some people behind. So together with the map, and there in the left-hand corner, you can see a compass. And this for me represents the process I take my clients through. And I'm going to take you through today in looking at any kind of conflict, challenge, crisis. How do we think through the times we're in? So here's the mediation process using the compass. The N for me represents the now. What's the problem or issue? What are the different narratives that are going on? Why do we perceive that as negative? And another one I've thought of recently is, what's our North Star? Where is it we're trying to get to? What does the future, what does a good future look like? Then the E stands for explore, but also explaining what our expectations are, what our experience has been, what evidence we're relying on, or what evidence we're missing. The S is for solutions. How do we decide where we go next, what resolution there is, whether we reach some kind of settlement, and what suggestions people have got? Can we hear other people's suggestions? And finally, the W is about walking forwards, agreeing on outcomes and actions, but also reflecting on what wisdom have we gained and how is it we're now seeing the whole picture, a wider perspective. So that's the compass. And together, the map and the compass create a process. So the book that I've written, The Mole and the Mountain, is like a parable. It's a parable for our time. It's just a story that takes Morris himself through this landscape. But together with the map and the compass, you create then a process that can help you to have dialogue, debate, to focus on disagreement, to resolve disputes, to think about the direction you want to go on, and to make decisions. So this process is now being used by teams, in boardrooms, by individuals, by families. For me, in my coaching as well, it's a universal process, combined with the book, should people wish to read it. And every decision we make, every time we're looking through resolving some kind of conflict or challenge or crisis, we have to think about what impact is it having on us at lots of different levels. So physically, financially, mentally, spiritually. And the one I can't see on the end because I got the box there. Emotionally. So all of those things are important when we're thinking about how are we, where is it we're trying to get to, and at what level are we trying to reach some kind of solution or resolution? Oops, why is that not working? There we go. So my mantra is resolve to survive. We're all trying to work out how are we going to survive in these very challenging times. Well, the answer is resolve to survive. We have to be upfront. We have to be early in resolving these challenges we have with each other, within our groups, within our society. But resolve also means a sense of resolve. We've decided that we are going to resolve these issues. We are not going to be drawn into division. We are not going to be polarized. We are going to reach resolution. We are going to be kind and generous to each other. We are going to survive through these times humanely, and that's my mantra. And you may have seen in the middle there of the map and the compass a red button. So I talk very much about red button moments. This is when we need to stop this process of conflict escalating. We're seeing this very much on the global stage at the moment with Russia and Ukraine, all sorts of other places that appear to be tinder boxes around the globe. How do we stop the escalation and step into a different kind of a different kind of interaction? And that interaction is and should be all about conversation, dialogue, finding a way to resolution. But first of all, we have to press the red button to stop the escalator and to step into a different kind of interaction, which is based on the principles of mediation. So I'm looking at how do we reach resolution and not descend into revolution? How do we make decisions and not be divided in division? And how do we have conversations and not conflict? Those are the key principles and the key direction we're going in. So all of this maps out, if you like, into this chart. And this is what we're going to go through. We start on the right-hand side in the now box, and you can take any issue, and we're going to go through this now. And I'd encourage you then to think about any situation, just bring to mind something that you would like to run through this process. As I say, it could be something for you as an individual. Think of something that we're going through as a society, or think about something in any group that you are part of, even if that's your family. And it all maps out as you start with the now, then go through exploring, then to solutions, and then to walking forward. And a bit like snakes and ladders, you can always go back if you need to revisit another box. So let's start with the storm. The storm represents any kind of crisis, challenge, change. There's plenty going on for all of us in the world right now. What does that look like? What does it feel like? And if you are in a situation where there's somebody else involved, you can think through or go through this process with them. So if they're not with you, you might think, well, I wonder what's going on for them. I wonder where their perception of this situation is different from mine. So here are some questions that will help you, and I'm sure Jill will be able to share these slides later, and I'll certainly send a PDF over of them. What are the big issues? What are the big issues for you as an individual? What are the big issues for you in part of a group and for us as a society? So what's happening now? What is the story or narrative? And that's one of the challenges we have right now, is that there are so many different narratives, and we're so busy trying to work out what's true, who's right, who's wrong. But let's hear those narratives. Where do those narratives come from? How do they sound? It's very important to understand each other's narrative, but not only that, where does that narrative come from? Why do people believe that? And why do they have a negative sense of perhaps your narrative or of this issue? What is it? What is it that they fear? I know Jill talks very much about, and as do I, the difference between love and fear. And we live in fear such a lot. So where does that fear come from? Where does that sense of negativity come from, out of the issues that you're concerned about? So these are some of the questions, and we'll maybe think of one overarching question that you can take into the session that we go into after this, the breakout session, to think about maybe what are some of the big issues that are impacting us now? Where are we struggling with different narratives, challenging narratives, and what is it we're fearing, particularly about being different from each other? Now, I mentioned the murky swamp of reality. And again, we fear being in the dark, don't we? There's a line in a song by Simon and Garfunkel which says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." And the question is, why is darkness a friend? And the answer is that sometimes we need to go into the darkness. We need to dig a bit deeper to find out what really matters to us and why, and to find out what's really going on for us and why. And I know that when I'm doing actual legal mediations, this is the bit that people try and skip. They'll come into my meetings and they'll say, well, here's the crisis and here's some solutions we think might work. And they're very, very reluctant to go into the murky swamp to understand how they think and feel, to even hear how others think and feel about this particular situation. They don't want to dig deeper. But the digging deeper, as I say, is where the magic lies. And I talk very much about the magic of conflict. And so this is the place where we need to stop and pause and take some time. And if you thrash around in a murky swamp, you only make it murkier. You have to stop and think, what is it I'm here to learn? How can I find clarity? There's a wonderful film, I don't know if you're aware of it, called Touching the Void, which is about two climbers who climbing a mountain together. And one of them ends up falling into a crevasse. I think his name was Joe, if you're aware of the film. And he lands on a ledge halfway down a crevasse. And he has a choice then. He's broken his leg in the fall and he can't hoist himself up to the top, although he can see the light above him. The only choice he has is to lower himself down into the bottom of the crevasse. And he takes that choice. He lowers himself down into the darkness. And from there, even with his broken leg, he does find a way out. He's able to crawl out and he finds a passage out. So I'm always reminded of that when I'm talking about this part of the journey, the murky swamp, and maybe being stuck in the crevasse, that sometimes you have to lower yourself further down into the darkness. And that's where the magic lies. So here are the questions for being in the murky swamp, being in the darkness. What is it you do not know but need to explore? What further evidence do you need, and what evidence perhaps are you relying on that perhaps others don't agree with? And what is yours and others' experience? And I'd also add to that, what were your expectations, or what are your expectations? Where are your expectations not being met? So next is this crossroads that I call the bridge of courage. And, you know, at some stage, we have to make decisions, we have to make commitments, we have to decide what direction are we going on. Otherwise, we are going to be sucked into this place that I call the nowhere abyss. We're going nowhere. Someone else is in control. Someone else is deciding for us. We're living life to someone else's agenda. And today, those agendas are not necessarily always in our best interests. So here again are some questions thinking about what possible solutions are there. it's very easy to be given a solution. In my job, people long for me to give them a solution. They know I'm a lawyer and they say, well, what's the answer? And again, the answer to that question is it's up to you. You decide. Self-determination is the key. We decide for ourselves, but we do so with all the information that we need. So thinking very clearly, how many solutions are there? What do they look like? What else might there be? What other suggestions can people make? Taking the time to do that. I went many, many years ago to visit Toyota, and they had a saying, I don't know if they still have, called nemawashi, which is digging around the roots. You have to dig deeply and think clearly before you make your commitment to a particular solution. And then I asked the question, well, what do we need to settle this? And actually, something I'll just drop in here, there's a very clear distinction between settlement, which could be something that will do, it's a compromise. Maybe it's a sum of money in the world I work in. You know, here you are, here's a sum of money. Will that settle it? Will you go away? And resolution. Resolution is the ability to know clearly that you're able to draw a line in the sand and move forward. You can move forward to a better future. You can see a better future. You don't have to dwell on the negativity, on the negative of the past. So this is a very important path to take, understanding how we create solutions and how we move forward. And sometimes the path is like a zigzag, very much again like snakes and ladders. You know, the zigzag path can often be the best path to follow rather than the straight path. So I talk about the difference between linear thinking and lateral thinking. In linear thinking, we want to go directly from A to B, but in lateral thinking, it's okay to zigzag a bit and find your way. And finally, the mountaintop. Well, we never get straight to the mountaintop. As you can see, there's some deep, dark woods there on the way up. That in itself is a journey, and maybe not all of us are destined to stand on the top of the mountain. And as you can see, even when you get to the top, to the pinnacle, oh, there's yet another valley and mountain to climb. So we never actually reach the end of our journey. But when we do decide where we're going, when we can see clearly what our purpose is, we have to think, what do we need to walk forward? And in particular, what is it that we need to walk forward together? What do we together need to be able to walk forward? Are we committed to that journey together? What have we learnt as a group, as individuals? What wisdom have we gained that's going to help us to walk forward together? And what enables us to see this wider perspective, to now see the bigger picture, the world as a whole? And so those are some other questions that help you to make that final part of the journey. But as I say, the journey is actually never over. And so just to think then, in summary, what I've talked through, there were 4 points on the compass, 3 key points, and then this final point. There's the now, there's the exploring in the murky swamp of reality, there's the finding your solutions, and then there's the walking forwards. And none of this is ever easy, especially in these stormy and uncertain times. I think what I'd like to say is to everybody, take a breather from doom scrolling, go out there and be who you are, find your purpose, find your journey, understand where you have come from and have a positive picture of the future. Quite hard at the moment. But be generous, be kind, and spread joy. And I called this, and I call the mapping your journey to success and joy. So be generous, be kind, and be joyful. And where do we find that joy from? So here is a little image that the cartoonist who's drawn my pictures in the book drew for me. I think we have a choice at the moment between these 2 images of the future. I say stay barefoot, stay fully human, and be free. There are hundreds of paths up the mountain. They're all leading to the same place. It doesn't matter which path you take. The only one wasting the time is the one who runs around the mountain telling everyone that his or her path is wrong. How many people are doing that to us? And so I'd like to say, be the very best version of yourself. And to me, that is to dance. So just to close, I'd like to recite a poem. It's from a very well-respected international mediator um, who has done a lot of work behind the scenes in the mediation world, often in war zones. And this poem is called To Dance. If I had it all to do again, and we never have it all to do again, but if I did have it all to do again, I'd take much more time to dance. Dance, you say? Who needs ballet? Who needs to move and sway that way? That's not dancing, moving that way. When you dare to be you, that's when you dance. When you fall and get up, that's when you dance. When you can laugh at yourself, that's when you dance. When you enrich someone's life, then you have danced. For dancing is knowing that whatever place you're in can be made into a place where hope can begin. Dancing is reaching again and again for the best that's in you. That's dancing, my friend. So I think that's the end. Please contact me if you wish to. I'm on LinkedIn. I know that everybody is. Those are my details. And there finally is the copy of the book. And here's Maurice again.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane. That's amazing. Hopefully Alan will have picked up the link by now and he can drop that link of Morris, that wonderful book, into the chat space as well. Thank you. What question are we going to focus on as we go to our breakthrough rooms? What are the
I think the question probably is, have you got one, Jill? Have you got
only
one?
from what you've just been saying is what are the big issues that are facing us
Yeah.
now? And it might be an individual one, and it might be a family or group one, or it might be the society as a whole. So you
Yes.
don't have to share anything in these groups that you don't feel comfortable sharing, but it's just we all have an issue in some way, shape, or form, whether it's just what you've seen on the news, which I would advise you not to watch the news because it's horrendous.
I never watch the news.
No, or
advice.
something that you might be prepared, because we are a safe space. The conversations aren't recorded in any way anyway. So if you want to share it in your three and you feel able to, it might be something personal about yourself. But it could be you, it could be a situation you are aware of, or it might be a society. So what are the big issues that you are facing now? And let's then come back to the room afterwards and see if there's any resolution that has happened, or if anyone's got any questions for Jane they might want to share with her as well.